37 years ago, a Republican president and a Democratic Congress came together in a new commitment to find a cure for cancer. At the time, cancer was the second leading cause of death in the nation. Americans lived in fear that they or someone they loved would be lost to this dread disease. In 1971, in response to these serious concerns, we passed the National Cancer Act with a broad bipartisan support and launched a war on cancer. Since then, significant progress has been made. New methods to prevent and treat cancer have led to more beneficial and more humane ways of dealing with the illness. And the expansion of basic research, the use of large-scale clinical trials, the development of new drugs, and the enhanced focus on early detection have led to breakthroughs unimaginable only a generation ago. And as a result, today cancer is no longer the automatic death sentence that it was a generation ago. But despite the impressive achievements in fighting cancer, our society now faces a perfect storm of conditions, have expanded the number of our citizens suffering from cancer, the aging of our population, the new environmental issues, increased life expectancy, and unhealthy behavior. As a result, today cancer is still the second highest cause of death in America. Clearly, we need a new way forward in battling this frightening disease. We must build on what the nation has already accomplished and launch a new war on cancer for the 21st century. We stand on the threshold of an unprecedented new advances in life sciences, such as much earlier diagnosis based on molecular evidence and astonishing new treatments tailored to an individual's own DNA and capable of blocking the gene's effects. But to make the promise of this new century of discovery a reality, we must see that patients' DNA tests are free from any fear that their genetic information will be used against them to deny them health insurance or even jobs. Congress took a major step last month towards unlocking the potential of this new era of approving comprehensive protections against genetic discrimination in health insurance and employment, and President Bush is about to sign it into law. To launch this new war on cancer, we must first give new urgency to efforts to find cures for cancer. We have learned over the years that cancer is, in fact, not a single disease. Knowledge gained from molecular biology now suggests that cancers vary not only from type to type, but from person to person, with each individual having specific cancer that is at least partially unique. Second, an equal priority must be to lift the horizons of science to detect and prevent the disease before it develops. We can now look at each other's genes to prevent cancers before they happen. We can tap modern technologies that can detect and destroy cancer cells in their earliest stages before they destroy a life. And we can continue to work on vaccines that will eradicate a threat over a lifetime. Third, we can treat patients with modern therapies that enable them to survive their cancers and lead full lives. Modern medicine allows individualized care for the specific biological, social, and emotional needs of each affected person. And finally, we need to integrate our current fragmented and piecemeal system of addressing cancer. Front and center in our current system are the troubling divisions that separate research, prevention, and treatment. Our current system treats these three aspects of cancer care as being inherently separate, rather than what they really are, different aspects in the continuum of comprehensive cancer care. The net effect of this fragmentation is the development of marked disparities in research, market innovation, and access to care and quality of care. And in sum, we need an entirely new model for research, prevention, for treatment, and we are here today to begin that effort. We must move from a magic bullet approach to a mosaic of care in which advance becomes part of the larger picture of cancer care. We have today an esteemed group of witnesses to start what I hope will be an ongoing conversation on cancer in our nation and the world.
Midnight 7 years ago from my brother, who had a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and a week later was told he probably only had about 6 months to live. And we asked as a family, what causes this kind of tumor, and the answer was nobody really knows. And asked what the treatment options were, and people said, well, there really aren't any that have been particularly effective. and asked what the prognosis was. And as I said, it was sort of a death sentence. And he said, and we said, that's just not good enough. We need to. He was an investment banker. It took a lot of companies like Amazon.com and Electronic Arts and others public. And Silicon Valley, and said we need to bring an entrepreneurial, technology-driven approach to bear here. And he started an organization which carries on called Accelerate Brain Cancer Cure, abc2.org, that's focused on driving innovation, focused on driving collaboration, focused on more entrepreneurship in this field. And it's, coincidentally, this week we have Brain Tumor Action Week, and on Sunday we kicked it off with a Race for Hope down Pennsylvania Avenue, and I was joined by 8,000 other people talking about this issue and shining a spotlight on this issue and trying to raise additional funds for this issue. But I'm not here to talk about brain cancer. Obviously, it's something I care deeply about, but I think part of the problem we have now, 37 years into this war, is everybody's kind of focused in their particular silo, focused on their particular issue. And what seems to be lacking, which is what I think your legislation is trying to address, is more of a strategic framework, taking a step back and instead of looking at this as a series of little pieces of the puzzle, integrating that puzzle in a more comprehensive kind of strategic kind of framework. And that's really what I think is desperately needed. Coming at this relatively fresh, bringing a sort of an entrepreneurial approach and certainly understanding technology and seeing how the Internet developed over the past few decades. It feels like that's what we need in this space, and the kind of leadership that Congress took with the Internet in terms of some of the funding of DARPA and the flexibility it gave DARPA because of desire to invest in this issue in the broadest possible context with the greatest level of flexibility because our national security was at risk, or when we set out with NASA to put a man on the moon, we said we need to do this quickly. We don't want to put a lot of restrictions on the groups focusing on. We want to give them maximum flexibility and encourage them to think out of the box. And indeed, those investments led to a lot of other spin-off benefits in terms of our economy with satellite technology and Internet companies and so forth. So I think there are some long-term benefits that go well beyond this. But it strikes me that it's exactly the right time to recognize that this war on cancer is not working at least the way we hoped it would. It requires a fresh approach. It's a little bit like your personal computer when it's slowed down and not working so well. You have to reboot it. You turn it off and turn it back on, and kind of a fresh start. And that's what I think we need here, and a new approach that really is enabled by technology, freed of bureaucracy, fueled by entrepreneurship, and really facilitated by collaboration. There are lots of great initiatives that are in place. Some of the testimony you'll hear this morning talks about them. I would just urge you to focus on this strategic framework, less on these particular issues and more on the broader context. Think of it more as an opportunity to build a platform for innovation, and particularly whatever you end up ultimately deciding in terms of how much of the national resources should be put against this effort, make sure a significant portion is really set aside for strategic initiatives, not focused on any one of these specific issues, but these broader issues such as what's happening with the Cancer Genome Atlas, or the bioinformatics network, sort of an internet for cancer research, or a biomarker database, broad efforts that really apply to all cancers, and over time I think can apply more broadly to healthcare as well. Because the other thing I've noticed as I've learned more about this, even though we call it a healthcare system, it really isn't a system at all. It's sort of a kind of confused world, and it really isn't even that much about health. It's more about disease care, and we need an ethic, as several of you talked about, that really focuses on keeping people healthy and prevention and wellness, earlier detection of things so you can catch these things earlier. And when people do have these difficult, life-threatening disease, obviously cancer being the centerpiece of that, just being able to deal with that in a much more thoughtful, much more personalized way, and recognize that it's less about where the cancer starts and more about a systems approach even to the human body, and approaching it in that kind of context. So I applaud the effort to really kind of reboot our efforts on cancer, restart those efforts, and bring a much more strategic approach. And I would urge you to resist the efforts from our organization, abc2.org, and many others to focus resources specifically on specific diseases. Obviously we care about that, but what seems to be missing after 37 years is this broader strategic framework, and far more of those dollars need to, if there are any earmarks, it really should be for these strategic initiatives that can benefit all cancer and over time benefit our healthcare system more generally, as opposed to the parochial interests of any particular organization. Thank you.